Good morning, everyone. Hope everybody's been having a great week. We've actually had a busy couple weeks, so I haven't really been on here much lately. But we're back out here in the backyard in my little garden that we got going on here. And today, one of my main focuses is going to be the tomatoes back here. I want to do some heavy pruning, mainly on the bottoms of the plants. So the initial idea, of course, is to have them coming up the trellis, okay? But I wanted the bottoms of them pretty well cleared out to allow for airflow, and technically it promotes, my understanding anyway, better growth to a certain degree too. Now I don't know how well that's going to work. Most of this should have been pruned as these plants were growing. So all the little branches and suckers, I've been keeping up on the suckers pretty well, but the additional branches and such, obviously when they're young, it's easier to prune them. You can just kind of pinch them off. Now the larger branches, you can technically break them off. It's kind of got a knuckle that develops, and it pops off pretty easily. I'm still going to be using some scissors. I don't have any actual pruning scissors just yet, so it's just going to be some kitchen scissors that I have. And the main reason for that is when you break it off, sometimes a piece of the, I guess you call it skin of the plant, kind of hangs on and it begins almost peeling off, and I don't really want to do that because that can, cause some damage to the plant. So let's go ahead and get started on that, and we'll see how much we end up taking off. Alright, let's tackle the other side now. Got some pretty good clearage out of there. Looks a lot neater, cleaner. My only concern, of course, is obviously making sure that basically the wounds that I just caused here are going to heal. I'm pretty sure it'll be just fine. Now, one thing to keep in mind, I didn't say this at the beginning here, is my understanding, and this is why I'm doing it this morning, I did not water last night. For pruning, from what I've read, you want to do it early in the morning or late in the evening before watering, though. You want your plants dry when you do it. I don't recall the exact reason why, but that's what was recommended. So that's why we're out here this morning doing this. So that being said, let's get to the cherry tomatoes on the other side and get that cleared out too. I'm hoping it looks just as good. One other thing, the middle plant here, which is my Cherokee Purple, has basically split off into two early on. Now I'm not cutting one of them off just because both of them became fairly large plants, so it's almost like I got two main stems. So I'm going to go ahead and actually let that go. One thing I am going to do at some point is try to kind of tether the one branch to the trellis, because it's kind of growing away from the plants, and part of that was probably because I didn't prune it properly, and that growth was trying to get to the sunlight. So that being said, that one actually is going to have two main stems, but the rest of it's pretty much down to one main stem. So we'll see what happens. Let's get to the other side now. Now this one wasn't near as wild at the bottom. I did do actually a little more pruning early on these ones, although I've stopped pulling the suckers. Now the reason we did that, we came across some information and we wanted to see how well it works. That with your cherry tomatoes, you can still prune them in the early stages to get that good strong stem growth. Again, we're growing up trellises here, but then once you've got it growing the direction you want it to grow, you let the suckers go to basically promote more. Basically, you're going to have more tomatoes. Now with cherry tomatoes, they're relatively small anyway, so you're not really trying to promote larger growth of the fruit. So basically that's why they were saying go ahead, let the suckers go, let it push out, because that's going to get you the most on your harvest. So we've stopped pulling the suckers. Now which one is this? My Sun Sugar, which is a yellow cherry tomato, actually kind of has 3 main branches that have developed. So same with the other side. I'm going to try tethering it to the trellis here, try to get it to grow a certain direction again, because it's kind of getting wild here, and it's also growing away. I'll show you here. So what I'm trying to do here is try to get all of this here to grow up this. So we'll see how that goes. Now with all these clippings I just did, I could probably put them in water and get them to root. I actually have a sucker that I pulled off. Unfortunately, I don't remember what tomato plant it was from. I didn't label it, but I put it in a tiny little jar of water, and it has started rooting. Let me go grab that real quick so I can show you. So there's nothing special with this here. It's just a tiny little jar with some tap water in it. I had this little sucker that I pulled off, and as you can see, I have some root growth here. So I could plant this and have another tomato plant. I'm actually going to let this kind of go a little bit more. I don't have anything special in the water, it's just tap water. I could probably put some Fox Farm liquid fertilizer in there, maybe some liquid worm castings or whatever. I've not done that. I'm just letting this go like this, nothing special. And I could do the same with some of these clippings that I just got too. So if any of them actually has, a little more of the knuckle on it, I'd probably just trim that off, get a good flat surface, just put it in some water. I just have this up in my kitchen windowsill above the sink. It's been sitting up there for, it's probably been about a week. But yeah, I could have several more tomato plants. So just keep that in mind when you're taking off the suckers, and if you're pruning off any branches or anything. If you want to, you can try getting more plants out of it. So I'm just doing it with just this one for this time. This is more or less a test. As I've said before, I think I actually said it in my last video, I have no idea what I'm doing. This is my first year gardening still. I'm still learning. I'm still basically a student as well. So most of what I'm doing here is pretty much experimental. I mean, I really don't know what I'm doing here. So, speaking of experimental, my bell pepper plant, the one that I've had for a little while now, and it's been struggling on and off, has been doing really well lately. And mainly due to the fact that I've been watering it more. It's not that I wasn't watering it often enough. I think the issue is it's just draining too much. I think that pot just drains too much. And so we began watering it pretty much daily, and this thing has come back to life. So the next thing I'm going to try to do with this, because I don't think the soil is retaining enough moisture. Even though I have mulched it, it's not retaining enough moisture. On top of that, it's starting to outgrow that. So I'm going to basically pot it up, transplant it into one of my empty containers out here. I may end up actually doing that this weekend sometime. I'm not going to do it this moment, but sometime I'm going to move it. I'm a little concerned because it's not necessarily a young plant. I mean, I've had this thing going since late last year, so it's been going for several months now. So there is some concern, but I think it's worth the risk of trying to transplant it and keep it healthy in a basically container that's going to retain more moisture and just be able to give it more nutrients also, because again, I think it's just growing out of that pot. So that's one of the things we're going to do there. I also have my starts out here. Now, these have been needing to get transplanted for a while here. So I've got my serranos and jalapeno starts. And my cantaloupe and watermelon. Now, they're the ones, of course, watermelon and cantaloupe are kind of viney. I actually have a couple over here. I'll show you in just a moment. But these are flopping all over the place here. So we're going to get those in the ground here real soon. Now, those are going to a different area. So we're back here where my onions are at here. And we have this cattle panel. It's a real heavy panel here. And we're going to use this as trellis for melons. Now, I already have cantaloupe and watermelon in here. I'm not moving it because it's already climbing up it. I'm just going to try to reinforce it because this wiring that I'm using right now, or fencing, it's like a 14 gauge, and it's not super heavy duty. So I actually have some rebar that I'm going to put in here for additional support, and it might, add some rigidity to it. And so I'm going to have to do that with the melon. So here's my watermelon plant. I need to actually look at whether or not, how I need to prune this one. And same with my cantaloupe here. So in between the two plants here, so if you can see it here, yeah, I'll put at least one rebar here and probably another on that other side. So I'll have two additional basically supports in here to help try to keep this up and hopefully support the weight, because I have a feeling these are going to get really heavy really quick. So that's about it for that as far as that goes. Now, my lettuce, I am still super surprised at my lettuce here. So what I've been doing to harvest this is just cut it down to essentially the center where you start seeing the new growth. I'm concerned I may have cut this one down too far, but we'll see what happens. But this one right here, let me show you. That one is getting new growth, and that's what I've been doing, is just cutting it down to the center. Now, I just cut down these two, and that was more than enough for dinner the other night. I still have 4 here that are ready for harvest, and I just cut them straight across. You can also cut just the outer leaves and work your way in if you want to do that. It depends on what your need is, So, but I'm really surprised at how well the lettuce has been doing. It's been doing quite amazing. Now, basil, on the other hand, I've got my sweet basil that is doing amazing. My purple basil, on the other hand, is dying. And I'm not quite sure why. Maybe the sweet basil is just taking over. I mean, it's getting pretty massive. Now, my guess with the purple basil is the soil itself. This would be the second purple basil I've tried. And this would be the second purple basil that just hasn't made it. But sweet basil seems to be just, I get plenty off that one. Now that one looks like it's about to go to flower. So I'm going to be pruning those off here Probably just pinch those off right now, to be honest. And you can just keep pinching those off. That's all I do. They do form little flowers. They smell amazing. I love having my basil. Yes, I do pull it. I'll pull leaves when I'm doing soups and stews and stuff like that. And every once in a while, I'll let the little flowers go ahead and bloom just because I like them. I like looking at them. And again, they smell just amazing. Even when you're watering, as soon as that basil gets wet, or even the ground around it gets wet, it starts putting off its aroma, and it smells like basil. It's probably my favorite smell out here, hands down. Oh, and then of course my zucchini. Let me put this down here real quick. I actually do have one zucchini that is just going to town. I am quite proud of that one. So I'm probably going to go through, and there's a few of the leaves that are looking worse for wear. So I'm probably going to snip those stems off, just so the plant's not putting too much energy into, essentially branches that are just going to die anyway. I'd rather it go into the good healthy branches. And that's kind of been my mentality on some of the pruning I've been doing lately anyway, is if it looks bad, like really bad, cut it off. If it looks like it's past the point of no return, just get rid of it and let the plant focus on other areas of itself. Now I do have some little yellow squashes that are coming up over here too. Now that one's not doing near as well as the zucchini. I probably should have done some pruning with that one. Again, that's another one that I need to look up. I'm a little behind on my pruning research, so I'm really going to have to kind of get into gear with that. So we'll take a look. My pea plants are actually still going. So I've got these tomato cages that weren't being used. And so what I decided to do with these is just put it upside down, and with the peas, I got it actually with the beans too, and let it start grabbing a hold of the tomato cage so it can climb up that. So I don't know how well that's going to work, but so far it seems to be doing just fine. So I mean, we'll see what happens. They weren't being used anyway, so yeah. And that about does it for me right now. Now I will say I have a few things that I'm going to be working on here real soon. Again, I haven't been on here much lately, so of course I'm going to get back into the routine of creating videos and uploading them for y'all here. But while I wasn't on here, I did have some time to do some additional reading and looking for additional ideas. There's actually some stuff for bread baking I want to do here real soon. I still want to get a sourdough starter started, so there's a few things there. I got some canning I want to do. I've got some pickling I want to do, so I've got quite a few things coming up here. As far as the garden goes, I still have shading that I need to get sorted out here real soon because it's going to get real hot real quick here. So we've got quite a few things ahead of us here, a lot of work ahead of us. So that being said, I'm going to get started on my day here. And if you haven't already, remember to like and subscribe, hit that notification bell, and we'll see you on the next one.